Hello and welcome to FMWONDERKIDS. My name is Rhys, and on this channel we look to bring you tips, tricks and Wonder Kids for the Football Manager series. Now this video is going to be a beginner's guide, a tutorial video. I've been playing Football Manager in its many guises for probably 20 plus years, right? And you can see here on my desktop that we go all the way back as far as like Steam has got the history for. So for me, I always load up Football Manager directly from Steam. Now, if you're playing on Mac and you're playing through Steam, I recommend doing this because when you get into like more advanced techniques of playing Football Manager where you're using like the in-game editor, for example, loading the game directly from your desktop or your menu bar can be a little bit buggy. So when you've loaded up Football Manager 2022, this is the screen you will be greeted with. Now we're going to be covering career mode here. It's the only real mode that I play personally, so it's the only one I can talk with any authority about, and we'll go to start new game. Now you can see there are multiple gameplay modes, each obviously with their own merits. Career mode though is the full fat juicy proper Football Manager version, which everybody refers to generally when they're talking about Football Manager, right? Now, while this is loading up, let me explain what's in the top corner here. The 22.4.0 update here is the database of players and staff, etc. that is in the game. Now, this generally gets updated by Football Manager 2 or 3 times a year, maybe more. That will get automatically updated on your PC. And I can't speak, by the way, for Microsoft, like Xbox versions of the game because I've simply never played them, right? I'm simply talking about Mac mainly and PC as well. Now, on this screen, I would always recommend going to Advanced Setup down the bottom. Quick Start, I just don't recommend because it's not really, it doesn't give you enough options, right? You can see here we're loading the database. And once that's loaded, you can see some of the preferences for the game which you're about to set up, right? Top right hand corner, this is the database size. Now, I would never recommend anything other than a large database. The thing that I enjoy personally about Football Manager is scouting and buying players, right? Your team is never going to be better than what the players that you've got is, if that makes sense, right? So just get a team with really good players. It's basically the aim of Football Manager is to build a team with the best possible players you can and make sure you don't balls it up, right? So large database I would always recommend. Now, changing the amount of players in your team is going to affect the estimated game speed, which is represented here by stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Now, I haven't got any kind of fancy computer here. I've got a pretty decent iMac, but it's not graphically amazing. It's not a super fast gaming computer. So I'm not going to be out of anyone's league, I don't think, in general terms, in terms of the machine I'm playing on. So a 25,410 large database is, my computer's going to handle that pretty well, right? Which is good. Now, you can see here on the left-hand side, additional leagues. I would always recommend adding additional leagues. The more leagues you have, the more players will be in this database, right? On top of the large database that you've chosen already. Now, this will also affect the leagues you can actually manage in. So if I loaded the game here, I could actually be a manager of any French team or any French league, sorry, that I've loaded up. Same with England, etc. right? Now, me personally, I would go in and add all the popular leagues in the world, say Germany, Italy, Portugal, Scotland, and I would probably make sure I hit all the Football Manager recommended ones as well, alongside Argentina and Brazil. Now, these two will add a huge chunk of players to my database and bring the performance down of the game slightly. But for me, there are a lot of really good players in South America. And if you hit Argentina and you hit Brazil in terms of loading those players up, you get a lot more variety and a lot better players, right, in your game. So we'll hit confirm on that. Now, if your PC is better or your Mac is better, by all means load every single country, and ideally I would recommend that, right? If your PC isn't going to be absolutely slow as hell, load everything up. That's great. But the more you do that, the longer your processing speeds in between kind of gaming actions will be. So it really does depend on how good your computer is, and there's no real way to test that other than trial and error. Football Manager does, of course, give you the recommendations. I probably wouldn't go below 2-star estimated game speed. When you get down to 1, it really does become quite slow. Here then we can add additional leagues, right? And you can see every time I add an additional league from these drop down menus, the number here, approximate player count in the top right hand side, will go up slightly. Now, whether this makes much of a difference, I really don't know, but I do always like to, when it comes to the English leagues, because I personally will always 99.9% of the time be managing in England, I like to go all the way down to the bottom, right, and get every single league in the English kind of pyramid that's available to us on Football Manager. Now, you might see this has gone down to 1.5 stars. I'll probably accept that in terms of processing speed. But like I said, if you do get down to 1 star, it's probably too much. That's when you know you've gone a bit too far. Next, advanced options. So use fake players and staff. I would never really recommend. I've never done that. It might be fun, but it's not the Football Manager experience that I want. Do not use real fixtures. I would never tick that as well. I would always like to use as real fixtures as possible. Do not add key staff. I would have that ticked, and I think it normally is ticked as default because you don't want to add random people to your game. And add players to playable teams would usually leave that unticked, right? Otherwise, it's going to do what it says, add players to playable teams. You don't want like random players being added. Disable first window transfer activity. Never tick this. You always want to be making transfers in your first window, surely, unless you're playing some kind of like role play scenario where you want your club to have a transfer ban. That could be pretty cool, but generally, why would you do that? Now, disable player attribute masking for me is quite important to tick. Now, it's probably quite a polarizing one in the community. Let me just explain to you what it does, and you can make your own mind up whether you want it in your game, right? Disable player attribute masking will not let you see the attributes of all players in the game, right? So, for example, if you wanted to buy a Berbatov, I realize he's probably retired now, but let's just use Berbatov as an example, and you hadn't fully scouted him for like maybe 2 weeks. So if you hadn't physically clicked a button to send your scout to go and scout Dimitar Berbatov for 2 weeks, you wouldn't know how good he is at finishing, right? Because everybody has, or every player has an attribute for each kind of proficiency in the game. So finishing would be 1. A bad finisher would have an attribute of 1 out of 20, and a good finisher, or the best finisher in the game, would have an attribute of 20, right? If you click this button, you will know how good Dimitar Berbatov is at finishing without scouting him. Now, you can still send a scout to find out more about him, to find out some more about his underlying attributes, but you wouldn't know how good he is at finishing if you had this unticked. So I like to tick it. It just adds an extra, if I untick it, it just adds an extra layer of something else I got to do in the game, right? Like, I've got a daughter and like a job and like all these things. I haven't got like all day to be playing Football Manager, scouting people, but some people swear by it, and that's absolutely fine. At the end of the day, it's a game, and play the game how you want to play it. For me, I never disable attribute masking. Also, as an aside, because my channel is about finding Wonderkids and finding good players, right? And it just adds another layer of something else I got to do if I want to find those good players. So it wouldn't make sense for me to have this unticked. Prevent control of teams with managers in place. Now, I wouldn't tick this because it would be kind of tricky. It would severely limit the amount of clubs you could start off as, if that makes sense, in the game. So I wouldn't use that. And I wouldn't tick prevent use of in-game editor, because maybe in the future you decide you want to use the editor. Now, some may consider using the in-game editor cheating. I spoke about the in-game editor a little bit at the start of the video. And some might use it just to see people's underlying attributes, like the hidden attributes such as consistency, etc., and not use it to edit anything in the game. That's what I do. I'm sure there are some people who go out there and edit their players and stuff like that, and that's fine, I guess, as long as you're not like cheating someone else if you're playing in a 2-player or whatever. But for me, I would untick it just in case you want to in the future go ahead and use the in-game editor in your save. Now, there are a few more advanced options you could do here. For example, you could go into advanced here on the large database size of things and add and remove nations or competitions that way. I don't generally tend to do that myself, but I know Jack, for example, over at Work the Space has talked about it, and it's something that he does. I do recommend going and watching his things to do on day 1 video, which I thought was absolutely great when I watched it. There's a few things that he does there which I don't do. But after that, you just got to choose where and when you're going to start. So early 2021-2022 pre-season here in Football Manager 2022 is already selected. It's the one I would always go for. You can change that to a myriad of different things, and I mean, it's all going to be like at the start of the season as far as I'm aware, and you can obviously start in other countries as well. Like I said, 99.9% of the time, I'm always going to pick an English club or a club from the English pyramid, even though I'm Welsh, but that's another story for another day. And then you just hit start game, right? As long as you're happy with the settings. Now, if you are a beginner, don't worry too much. You can, if you get things wrong, go back and you just do it again, start a new game, right? It's not the end of the world. You can't break anything. That's the main thing probably to take away, is just try things out. There's nothing going to break. It's all going to be fine when you start again and start a new game, and you can change things then. So now this part of the loading does take quite a while and will take longer the more leagues you have and the more things you set up, etc. Right? So I'll just chop the video here and then we'll jump straight to, I think it's the management selection part next, right? Where you're like picking your avatar and stuff. Okay, yeah, that's right. So we're on the avatar screen where we create a new profile, right? So that's quite self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through all the sections of this where we create the hair and the eyebrows, which is a hugely contentious issue this year in Football Manager. Make sure you choose the right eyebrows, by the way. So I'll just quickly call my man Dave Jones, give him some nice bushy eyebrows, and we'll go from there. I'll always choose a team in the Premier League or the Championship, maybe League One sometimes, right? It's just how I like to play Football Manager. But obviously you can choose any of the leagues which you previously loaded up. Now, if you do choose to go quick start at the start, which I didn't recommend, it would ask you to choose your team straight away, right? Which is one of the things that I like about not doing quick start, because you can actually save the game here, right? So if you go to the FM icon in the top right hand corner, you can actually save this game and call it anything you like. Untitled game or whatever, and then you know that you've got this like saved before you've picked your team, so you won't have to go through that quite long-winded process of loading up all the leagues every single time you want to start a new game. Okay, good. So you can use the pick team for me button down here, which could be fun, but I really don't know why you would do that. Half of the fun for me is like picking your team. So let's choose, for example, my favorite team, Manchester United. And if you want to know how to get the club logos, by the way, and specifically is what I'm trying to say, the Manchester United logo, I do have a video on that. Just check out the home channel. But as you can see, you get a brief history or a brief overview, sorry, of the club from the main screen just by clicking on the kind of bar of the team here. But if you click on the actual team name, you can then go into a little bit more detail by looking at the players, the senior squad, looking at their schedule, so the fixtures, for example, and looking at all their staff, like who have we got at Man United? We've got Bobby Charlton and Alex Ferguson as the directors. For example, I think this actually comes from a database which I manipulated a little bit to sack the Glazers, which is interesting. That's, again, the videos on the homepage. Transfers, history, etc. So let's, for argument's sake, say that I'm going to choose Manchester United. I would then click on this button here, which goes to Managerial Style. Now, this is a quite important section of the video, so make sure you bookmark it, that's a TikTok thing. Make sure you kind of pay attention is what I'm trying to say. If you're new to Football Manager and you need to learn things, right? Okay, so you can choose how good you are of a manager, right? Suggested badge based on Man United and suggested experience based on Man United are already ticked here. You can untick these preferences and change them however you see fit. Obviously, coming in as a Manchester United manager, you would generally have the best of the best qualifications and experience, right? That then gives you a certain set of points that you can allocate to each competency in either the coaching side of the game or the mental side of the game. Each of these competencies will directly affect how good your players can become in your specific team, because you personally do get to coach your players using the attributes that you give yourself in this start screen. Now, in previous games, your attributes could go up and down, I think. I'm not sure if that's still the same in Football Manager 2022, but certainly things like your media, where's the media one? Or maybe it's not there anymore, but it used to be like a media attribute. Anyway, maybe it's something different. So, 3 key attributes for any coach in Football Manager, and I will make a video on this actually specific topic, are level of discipline, motivation, and determination. So in order to max out these positions on the mental attribute side of things, I'll bring all the other ones down to 1 or 2, and I'll bring motivation, level of discipline, and determination all up to 20 using my mouse at my fingers. I think that's a great place to start if you're like wanting to max out your kind of coaching skills into your players. And then you just need to decide whether you want to be an attacking coach or a defensive coach or a tactical coach or a mental coach. And again, these will feed into how good you can coach your players. So generally, I always choose like an attacking and a technical kind of side of the game. Maybe you want to choose tactical because it's quite hard to find tactical coaches in the game. So bear in mind, you are essentially part of your coaching team, and you will have to find other members of that coaching team that are good at the other sides of the game, right? The other competencies here. So you'll have to find a tactical coach, you'll have to find a goalkeeping coach, etc. So generally, I would bring my goalkeeping attributes all the way down to 1 because I know I'm going to be signing goalkeeping coaches, right? At least 2 goalkeeping coaches, unless I'm at a really lower league level club where lower league level clubs, you cannot sign as many coaches as you can at a Man United, for example. So I know at Man United, I'm going to be signing at least 2 goalkeeper coaches, so I don't need to be able to coach that side of the game. I probably want to be attacking and technical, right? That covers off quite a few competencies, which we will touch on later on in the video. And the rest, I'll probably just try and max out to like 15 or 16, right? Until it's allocated all the numbers. You can see those numbers at the bottom of the screen here. I've got 5 left. Maybe I'll put a couple there and a couple there and a couple there. Happy days. So I'm totally happy with that. You could go into people management, youngster knowledge, adaptability, player knowledge, etc. But personally, for me, the way I play the game, these don't really matter at all. Although I have got 36 points left to allocate, so I'll probably just do this. Happy days. Now, there is, of course, an easier way to do this. You can let Football Manager allocate these attributes to you based on the type of manager that you want to be or that you think you are. Are you a disciplinarian? Are you a motivator? Are you knowledgeable or a tactician? For example, if I hit tactician here, it gives me 20 tactical, 20 mental, and 20 motivating, etc. So once you're happy with that, click confirm on the right-hand side, and you are in the game.